Hello, Ohio State fans. I am not Dave Biddle. I am not Dan Rubin. I am Patrick Murphy, and I'm here with Steve Helwagen. We are in Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days. We are through 2 days of the event here. One more to go this afternoon when we will talk to – who do we have left, Steve?
Well, you certainly got Michigan.
Yep, Michigan's the headliner.
Sharon Moore and his players that'll be there. Let's see, who else? USC, UCLA will both be there. Purdue, I don't think we've seen them yet.
No.
You got the list?
Here's the schedule. We've got
Iowa,
Purdue, UCLA, Michigan State, USC, and Michigan. So those are the teams remaining. Everyone else we've talked to over the last 2 days. Before we get into some of our takeaways and thoughts about Big Ten Media Days, I want to remind you about factormeals.com. If you use the code Bucknuts50 off, you can get half off. As you can see, if you're watching this live on the bottom, great meals, free shipping on your first box. Check it out. I know Dave has been advocating for them. So yeah, check those out. They are a lovely sponsor of ours. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, please turn on those notifications, turn on, leave comments. All that stuff is great. If you're listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, please leave a 5-star review. It helps us out tremendously. All right, Steve, let's start with Ohio State. Obviously, that's what most people here are curious about. We were talking about this earlier. It's been kind of a quiet Big Ten Media Days for the Buckeyes coming off a national championship. You had Ryan Day, you had Caleb Downs, you had Sonny Styles and Jeremiah Smith. I know Dave and Bax talked about it some, but not a lot of news. But that's probably a good thing for the Buckeyes as they head towards the 2025 season and their title defense.
Yeah, there's not a lot of controversy. There's not much meat on the bones, so to speak. I think everybody after spring football has a pretty good idea of what this football team is going to look like. The one question is whether Julian Sain is going to go ahead and cinch this thing up and become the starting quarterback, or is Lincoln Keenholz going to continue, to come after, Julian and steal this thing during preseason camp, which I think would be a shock to many people, given the fact that Julian was ranked here and Lincoln was ranked here coming out of high school. Yeah. But Lincoln does have an extra year in the system to his benefit. So I think that's going to be an interesting situation that's going to get solved. The practice obviously begins a week from today, and you think about it, really, again, there's not a lot undone out there that you're truly worried about. I mean, you think about it, they pretty much settled on the offensive line. They pretty much settled on the starting wide receivers. It looks like James Peoples is the guy at running back with CJ Donaldson right there as his caddy. And, it just feels and seems like, Max Clare obviously at tight end. Over on defense, the secondary is pretty well set. The linebackers are pretty well set. I think Larry Johnson could throw a wrench into the works a little bit with how he aligns his defensive line, but you pretty much know that the defensive tackles are pretty well set. It's just out of his collection of defensive ends, which I think is going to change on a weekly basis. Larry loves to do this on who is having the best year, who is practicing the best that given week. He is going to shake things up on a week-to-week basis, I would presume, and make those guys earn it every week. And, I had a chance to meet with Bo Donaldson at the North Carolina.
Atkinson.
I'm sorry, Bo Atkinson. Sorry about that. At the Special Skills Invitational last Friday. Very impressive young man, and said he shares a lot of the values that Larry Johnson has and wanted to come and be taught by him. He went through spring practice with Bill Belichick at North Carolina and decided to leave. So, take that for whatever it's worth. But coming to Ohio State, playing for Matt Patricia, there's not a lot of differences in the defense. So that's a good thing. And obviously I asked Coach Day at the media session on Tuesday, you've got Matt Patricia as the new defensive coordinator. You have 8 new starters on the defense. How comfortable, how happy are you with what you're seeing or what you're going to get out of that side of the football, because they were so dominant at times in 2024. One of the best defensive seasons I think that Ohio State's had in this modern era.
Yeah.
So certainly the best going back to the late 20 teens. So to me, I think that that's still a question that's out there, is how's Matt Patricia, after a year off, how in a long time off, from being a college coach, how is he going to do as a college defensive coordinator? And again, we'll start to get those answers as they get into practice and build on things day after day, week after week, leading up to the first game. I think it's August 30th.
Yep.
Against Texas. It figures to be 1 versus 3 or 2 versus 3 or whatever it's going to be, but it's going to be one hell of a game, that's for sure.
It was funny. Ryan Day talked about how when the Buckeyes arrived at the hotel here in Las Vegas, they went to check in, and they needed somebody to check the players in because none of them are 21 years old. And it just kind of shocked me. Obviously, we knew Jeremiah. He's a sophomore. The decision to bring him, from my understanding, kind of went down to the last minute of, do we want to send a sophomore? Well, if we don't send Jeremiah, everyone's going to ask these guys about Jeremiah, so we might as well send him. But you've got Sonny Styles, who's going into his senior year. I'd forgotten he reclassified coming out of high school, out of Pickerington, and so he's not even 21 yet. You got Caleb Downs, who's a superstar after 2 years of college football, not 21 yet. This is a group. I mean, these are obviously 3 of the returning guys, but the experience and they're young. Let's just be frank about it. But still very talented, and it seems like no one is too concerned about this youth and takeover. Maybe they're not picked to finish first. Penn State was picked to finish first. We'll touch on them in a second. But it seems like everyone is pretty confident that the Buckeyes are just going to, as they say, not rebuild, but reload.
Yeah, I definitely am subscribing to that thought that, they lost a lot of talent when they had 14 guys drafted. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And so they have to make up for a lot of 4 guys in the first round alone. And, to my way of thinking, you look at it and you just see that at each position, there's guys coming in behind them who were rated as well, or, considered highly talented guys. They just don't have the experience. And that's where playing such a marquee game in the first week against Texas really kind of bites you, because you're not easing into this thing. You're playing one of the best teams, if not, supposedly preseason, the best team in the country right off the gate, right off the jump. And will you be able to match their intensity, match, everything that they're going to bring to this game when it comes in the first game? So I think they've got a lot of questions in that regard to answer during the preseason, and they were raring to go. I mean, it sounds like Jeremiah Smith, he was outstanding in his time with the media. Caleb Downs obviously was great. So was Sonny Styles. So we've published all those interviews up on the site for folks to check out. And I look at it, and to me, it's a matter of the talking season has been fun. And what's crazy, Pat, it was only 6 months ago, right about this time, that they played the last game against Notre Dame to win the championship. A lot of times you think, the postseason is 7-8 months long. It really wasn't this time around because of that extra, 3.5 weeks or whatever for the championship run. So they're getting right back into it. They had a spring practice that was delayed and didn't start necessarily when they would ordinarily start it. So some things have been a little bit different, but it's going to be another outstanding and fun year of Ohio State football. Anything less than contending for the Big Ten championship and making the playoff is certainly not acceptable at this point. And to me, I think they're going to be right there in the mix to do all of that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the youth there, but most of these guys have played. You mentioned the defensive line, right?
Yeah.
You got Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry.
They've played some.
They've played a good amount. You've got in the secondary, you've got Jermaine Matthews Jr., who played quite a bit the second half of last year, even at safety, linebacker. Those guys filled in at times in big moments. Malik Hartford started a game. Jalen McClain started a game. Arvell Reese started a game when Cody Simon was out. So offensive side of the ball, same thing. That offensive line you touched on earlier, some of those guys were playing big minutes or big snaps in the college football playoff run. Yes, you have the quarterbacks, the running backs. CJ Donaldson's played a bunch, though. I think Max Clare's a guy we probably haven't talked about enough.
Yeah.
He could be huge for this offense. So interesting that they are inexperienced, but not as inexperienced as they could be if these guys hadn't gotten in. One team that is certainly experienced and has sort of been the team everyone was interested to talk to is Penn State. They're kind of repeating that Michigan-Ohio State model of bringing a bunch of guys back and kind of going all in for the national championship. I thought it was interesting thinking back to Ryan Day last year when he was pretty adamant. Like, he wouldn't say natty or bust, but he knew how talented the team was when we were in Indianapolis. James Franklin has sort of, and maybe it's just because he hasn't been at that level yet. At least Ryan Day had played or coached in a national championship game before, but he seems to be a bit more reserve, I guess, in some of his comments. What did you make of Penn State today?
Well, Penn State, it's been a struggle. I mean, they win 10 games every season, it seems like, with James Franklin, but they never win the big one. And that's been the problem for them. Can't beat Ohio State in particular. I think Ohio State is going for, I believe, 10 wins in a row in the series this year. The last one was 2016. So my math's bad. Maybe it'll be 9 in a row. I don't know. But it's been a good long while since they've been able to beat Ohio State, and have to go on the road this year to try and do it in Columbus. And so, to me, it's kind of an uphill climb for them. They are either going to be preseason number 1, which is what Phil Steele had them as, or number 2, which is what Athlon and Lindy's had them as. And they have not been ranked this highly in the preseason. I talked to our friend Mark Brennan from Lions 247, an old friend of ours, and he said the last time Penn State was regarded this high was in 1999 when they were preseason number 1, when they had guys like LeVar Arrington was there, some of those type players. And, and they didn't get there in 1999, and they didn't win the championship. I think they lost 3 games that season for Joe Paterno. But, that'll give you an idea. It's been a quarter of a century since Penn State has had a team that's been this highly regarded, at least in the preseason. They had some teams, obviously, that, started out 7-0, 8-0, whatever, 9-0, and were in the top 5 or whatever. Last year, to get to the championship, well, they lose to Oregon in a heartbreaker in the Big Ten championship game. Yep. It was kind of a game where Oregon was ahead 6 to 10 points most of the way, and it just ended up, Oregon just was able to hold them off at the end type game. Then who did they beat? I know
SMU in the first round.
And it wasn't Arizona State.
Yeah, I don't recall off the top. I'd have to look that up.
It was another off-brand team, not a championship level team.
Boise?
Yeah, it was Boise. Boise in the second round.
Yeah.
So
it was an easy path. A relatively easy path.
They had an easier run to the championship Final Four than Oregon, who won the Big Ten, or Ohio State, who beat them head-to-head. I mean, when you think about it, but they got to the Final Four, and I don't think they got the credit that they deserved, for doing that. They lose a heartbreaker to Notre Dame.
Don't complete a pass to a receiver in that game.
Yeah, and so I asked Coach Franklin at the media session when he was at the podium, I'm like, okay, you lose Tyler Warren, who was the entire team, it felt like, on offense. Yeah. And he's not coming back. Like, how are you going to bridge that gap? And he talked for about 3 minutes.
He named a lot of players.
He named every player on the offense. Of course, he didn't get into Drew Aller. He'd already talked about him at the quarterback spot. He's he's done some incredible statistical things, but again, hasn't won the big one. So, and then he went through, he's got the 2 great running backs, Allen and Singleton, both back. And he said both of them are within striking distance of being the career leading rusher at Penn State.
Yeah.
And they've split carries for 3 years. So that'll tell you, what those guys, they're all about. They went into the portal. They got 3 guys at wide receiver that they're very excited about. So they did kind of restock a little bit. And he's happy with the tight end that'll be moving up to replace, Tyler. So to me, they're going to be a team that's going to be reckoned with throughout this thing. And if both Ohio State and Penn State are undefeated, come, late October, early November,
yeah, it's that first weekend,
like November 1st or 2nd, whenever that game is, look out, because that's going to be one hell of a game at Ohio Stadium. And, Ohio State could have one loss if they somehow would lose to Texas, or one of those early road games that could bite them. But, I think that certainly, we were talking to the Washington publisher last night. Washington's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
We know Wisconsin's a tough place to play. Oregon barely got out of there with like a 3 or 4 point win last year. So Ohio State's kind of got its work cut out for it itself just to get to that game in a top 3 or top 4 ranking, to really set up the stakes to play, for the spot in the Big Ten championship game, which is ultimately the goal, at least in the regular season. So I don't know what else there is to really cover on that, but, there was some talk, Tony Petitti, about this idea of doing these play-in games to get into the playoff. I'm not real excited about that 3 would play 6 and 4 would play 5. So last year, 3 was Indiana because they got bumped out of the spot for the championship game, and they would have had to play like Iowa, and Ohio State 4 would have had to play Illinois 5, or Iowa, Illinois. And so now you've got Iowa and Illinois, both 3-4 loss teams in there, trying to knock out a 1 or 2 loss team from the playoff. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why you'd want this extra game, and why would the other power conferences agree to a system that puts less than your best teams in the playoff? I just don't understand that. It's been determined over 12 games. To me, that should prevail as to what it should be. And, we want to win it on the field. I don't even know what that means. You win it on the field by winning 3 or 4 games in the playoff. That's how you win it on the field. But the paradigm of our sport is changing. There'll be a 4-loss national champion probably one of these days. Just, it's inevitable probably. And, we'll have to come to deal with it, I guess.
Yeah, we don't have to go too deep into it, but I'm not sure why we need to move away from the 12-team playoff after 1 year. I thought that went pretty well last season, but
now you got to pay the players.
That's
and you
true.
got to raise all this extra money, and I guess there is a lot of discussion about a settlement between the conferences, the NCAA, and the lawyers who were in the House settlement. And they are going to be a little bit more lenient with some of the NIL deals that are presented for some of these athletes. That collectives will be able to come up with some of these NIL deals. So I think we're back to the Wild West of buying your way out of a paper bag here. If you've got a problem, just go buy a player. And money should be no object for these schools if the collectives are raising 15 or 20 million to augment the 15 million in rev share. So, there's been a lot of talk. Ohio State's missed out on some pretty good players in the 2026 recruiting class. And a lot of people have thought it was because they lost some bidding wars. Well, they're down to the last 2 or 3 spots in that class. If you look at it numerically, they've already got 20 some commitments. And so,
22, I think,
so that, it's not like there's a lot of money left in the coffers. Plus you've got to save money for the portal, et cetera, et cetera. So, I guess Ross Bjork made a comment to Tony Gerdeman, our friend from
Buckeye Huddle.
Buckeye Huddle. My memory is going really bad on me. Buckeye Huddle, that our Ohio Sports Group, or whatever they're calling it, Buckeye Sports Group is, can function as a collective. They've got the people, the machinery from the foundation involved in it, and it's plug and play, as he said. So now that they've got some clarification on what's legal and what isn't, we'll see if they put their money where their mouth is and go buy some players. That seems to be the way of the world again in college sports. So look out. The haves are going to prevail. That's what you want.
Yeah, and Ryan Day talked. He was asked obviously a lot about this, and obviously couldn't go into specifics about some of these recruiting battles. But his big thing, and I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, is he just wants a resolution. What rules do we play by? How are they being enforced? And then let's get everybody on the same playing field so that you can go about doing this. Because as you mentioned, a lot of teams sort of front-loaded their NIL payments right before that July 1 date. so they could get kids committed and get those deals signed before it had to be checked by this NIL Go thing. And Ohio State wasn't going to do that because they didn't want after the fact to come back and either get in trouble or not be able to make those payments, whatever it may be. I don't know. We'll see who was right, who was wrong in this. It takes us back to a few years ago when Ohio State, it kind of looked like wasn't prepared for NIL. Obviously, they got their stuff together and everything turned out all right. The national championship being the prime example. But again, I think you said it right. It's back to the wild, wild west until we figure out rules and regulations and they get that all settled so that everyone knows what they're doing out there. One last thing before we end this, Steve. I mentioned we're in Las Vegas. What have you made of Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas? Obviously, it was much further travel for us, but something different.
Yeah, an accommodation for the 4 West Coast schools. Obviously, this was much easier travel for them. And I think in the future, it's even possible this could be in Los Angeles, although logistically, that's even worse than Las Vegas. Las Vegas, people who haven't been here in a few years has definitely changed. We're here in the middle of the summer when obviously the occupancy rates are not all that high because on a given day it can be 100 degrees or more here in Las Vegas during July. So there's not a lot of clamor for people to come here because there's not a lot of stuff you could do outside during these months. You're not going to go out and play a ton of golf or do those kind of things. The pool's been pretty busy here at Mandalay Bay, but I think people have taken that in small doses too because it is so hot outside. But to me, I think it's been fine. They're going to actually play a women's Big Ten basketball tournament here and a men's Big Ten basketball tournament here within the next 5 years, which will be certainly interesting to see if people look at that as, okay, I'm going to go to Las Vegas for the weekend to support my team. And, do they get the same kind of attendance that they get when they have it in places like Chicago, which is where I believe it'll be this year, Indianapolis. Obviously, the Indianapolis has worked. They front loaded because they have locked up the Big Ten championship game. They looked at Las Vegas and Los Angeles and said, nah, baby, nah. They put their best foot forward with their bid to keep that game in Indianapolis for the time being for the next 5 years. So we'll see if the football championship ever leaks out of the Midwest. To me, that would be a hard one because, if you have these really good teams, as we saw with Ohio State last year, the travel becomes almost unbearable.
Oh, yeah.
You played your first round at home, then you went clear to Pasadena.
Well, imagine if they'd gone on the road, if we had to go to Tennessee.
Playoff. Yeah.
We traveled down there December 21st or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Then we're in LA.
Then
we're in
Dallas.
Then we're in
Atlanta.
It was a lot, guys. I don't know if people traveled. I know some people tried to go to all those. God bless you if you did. But I mean, just for, us covering it, I got home and, end of January and was just exhausted for 2 weeks.
It was bad.
Yeah. The nice thing about Las Vegas is, and everyone knows, I'm a beer connoisseur. You like your beers. We can walk around with it. That has been fun. How are you doing gambling wise?
It's crazy. I'm going to tell this story. We went to dinner on Tuesday night. Came back to Mandalay Bay. I walked right up to a roulette table, and I have 6 numbers that I like to play, and it's in a row, 21 to 36, down one row of the table. You have all the numbers laid out there. So I kind of highlight those numbers, put $2 or $3 on those numbers and maybe $1. I'm only playing like $15 a hand. I'm not playing heavy duty,
He's at the high roller table.
No, I walked by that one. It was funny going to and from the session on Wednesday. There was nobody in the high limit room at like noon local time, but I hit 3 of my numbers the first 3 rolls and made about $250, and that's never happened to me in 15, 20 years of playing roulette. So that was a nice little thing to have happen. And my mission the rest of the trip has been not to give that back. And I finally hit the Reds on a money line, which was nice with the win. The game started at 9:05 Pacific time here on Wednesday, and we were sitting in the meetings when got the word that they finished it off and had won the game, and Nick Lodolo had pitched a complete game. So that was awesome. Shutout, 5-0. So I won a little bit of money on that. So yeah,
there you go.
Good stuff.
And I don't gamble. At least not this kind of gambling.
Okay.
So I have stayed even thus far.
We had some fun. We had a
24/7
group playing blackjack. We had a Ohio State beat group playing craps together, and
that got a little wild.
Making some noise over at Luxor for a little bit. But yeah, that's been the fun part of this, is that there is no shortage of nightlife in Las Vegas. So the meetings haven't started until midday here. And our thought yesterday as we were going to dinner was that because the ACC was going on at the same time, the Big Ten basically gave them the first half of the day, and the Big Ten took the last half of the day, so that people could watch all the stuff on national television on Big Ten Network, the same day as the ACC stuff. So it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap here. We got another day of Big Ten media, as we mentioned off the top. Michigan highlights. USC.
What do you think Sharon Moore's going to be asked about?
Woo!
When do you think the other shoe's going to drop?
Yeah, we'll report back on that for
sure.
sure.
Will you ever coach another game at the University of Michigan?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Michigan will be interesting. USC, I almost said Pete. Lincoln Riley on the hot seat, I would say.
Feinbaum really lit him up, I guess, and said that, I don't know, he's the worst coach, or I don't know, had really hard words for Lincoln Riley. So we'll see what he thinks about that. He'll probably just laugh that off. But what is it? Deshaun Foster, the UCLA coach, in his remarks last year.
I imagine he'll tell us more about Los Angeles.
And he said, Los Angeles is great. We've got USC out there. Yeah. I mean, this is the coach of UCLA who said that. So that was a bit comical. I'm sure Martin Germond, our old friend, who's the athletic director out there, was probably, scratching his head on that one. And
as we all were.
Another one is Pat Chun, who worked at Ohio State, and I think he was in the running to replace Gene Smith, who he worked for years and years before at Ohio State.
Did you see this?
What's
Gene
he got
Smith
going on?
Is taking a consulting role at Maryland, who is now Jim Smith is now the athletic director.
Yeah, so. Jim Smith is a guy that worked for Andy Geiger and Paul Krebs back in the late 1990s. And then he went to work with the Columbus Crew, the Atlanta Falcons, and has kind of bounced around.
Most recently, the Braves.
The Braves, the Braves most recently. But he has been at the highest level in sports as an administrator. And he'll bring, a professional model, I think, to Maryland. And I think the clock is ticking on our friend Mike Loxley as a result of that. If he has another poor season like that, Jim Smith will hire a guy that he approves of as the football coach there, I would think.
That may be this may have been the last time we see him.
Yes, XXTH time at the Big Ten Media Days and last. Yeah. So, yes.
All right. Well, we'll have plenty of coverage on Thursdays, Media Days. So stay tuned to Bucknuts. As Steve mentioned, all of us stuff that we did with Ohio State on Tuesday up on Bucknuts already. So if you've missed any of that, go check it out.
And mum's the word on Ohio State. They're kind of floating under the radar.
Which is fine.
No injuries, no off the field stuff before camp begins. You got 1 week. Just keep it under the radar. No controversy, no anything at all. Just make the main thing, as the kids like to say, and go out and have a great year. I think that's what everybody in Buckeye Nation is hoping for. It's going to be hard to duplicate last year, but put one foot in front of the other and see where you are in November and let the chips fall where they may.
Yep. And again, turn on that bell for notifications on our YouTube page. Lots of videos on there. If you're listening to this podcast, please give us a 5-star review, leave comments, and visit our friends at factormeals.com. Use Bucknuts 50 off to get half off of that. Steve, thanks for doing this.
Pat, loved it.
Yep. And we will talk to you soon. We'll be headed back to Columbus, and we're off and running now. Fall camp, as you mentioned, starts next week. So stay tuned. Plenty of coverage coming your way on Bucknuts. Thanks, guys.